This year, in the year of our Lord 2023, there have been a lot of games that have really got people excited and talking. One of these games, however, Wo Long Fallen Dynasty, had quite a bit of hype behind it, specifically because Team Ninja, who did Neo, was the makers of the game. And on top of that, it gave like Sekiro vibes, which was a big game for a lot of people, and especially Souls fans. And it was actually one of my favorite games of all time. So, how come we don't hear people talking about Wo Long much, and we don't see many people playing games about it unless you go search up their channels? And I think this is probably for a couple of reasons. The first reason is it just doesn't feel as good as Sekiro. There have long been crossover, or overlapping game mechanics and styles. For example, Neo had drawn many comparisons to various Souls-like games over the years, or the Souls games themselves. So, when you have something like Sekiro, which has such an amazing combat system that feels absolutely so fluid, it's hard to match that. And then on top of that, Sekiro was very exciting in the sense that it was a very unique atmosphere that it created and had lots of large and interesting creatures, as well as some really fascinating characters. However, the story in Wo Long also doesn't seem to be anything that gripping. Overall, it seems to be one of the more basic stories in most of the games that I played as of late. Or, at times, it just becomes confusing and it becomes hard for people to follow, where Sekiro was a fairly straightforward and simple story. It didn't, make waves with how great the story was for Sekiro, but it was good enough to keep you involved in the gameplay, and the sword combat just felt so good. So let me actually go back to the first thing that I said there for a second, is how the combat system feels so fluid in Sekiro and how it's hard to combat that. Overall, in this game, there definitely is some fun combat, I do have to say, and I do like the variation in builds that you can do, particularly the variation in gameplay style based upon your weaponry. However, I find that most of the weapons in Wo Long are pretty much useless. Overall, the polearm thing pretty much sucks because it's so slow. You have some other ones like the Polaris one, which is a really heavy damaging weapon, and that one definitely has some weight to it, so since it does damage, it kind of outweighs how slowly it moves. But even so, I find that typically the easiest way to go about this game is to try to use a fast weapon that you can try to quickly get the enemy off balance, and then come in with the critical attack on the large weapon that you have as a secondary, as that will do more damage. However, I don't want to be thinking about these things. I don't want to have to switch between those two weapons in order to make things slightly easier. What I'd much rather do is just have a fun combat system that is through and through pretty much fluid and easy to use. Also, I think that there's just a bunch of layers in this game. For example, you have your morale ranking, your fortitude rankings, you have your various levels, all these other things. And so I think that definitely people can find that, say, the critical attack parry timing is way too tight, but if you go and you get your fortitude and all that up, then that definitely helps on that end. But really, I think the biggest thing that for me stands out of why Wo Long just doesn't do it is, and the reason it's not a very fluid system, is the constantly having to switch over to your B button. So I played on Xbox, that's why I say B button. Overall, I guess it would be circle on PlayStation. Basically, you don't block with LB and then attack with RB or etc., that type of thing. You attack and then you have to parry with B, and then overall there's a deflect system with LB. However, the deflect system with LB is practically useless. It's just far better to get your parry timing down and parry every fucking attack. However, it would feel far more fluid if it was the LB button that would be my parry button. And I don't really find it very easy to go in there and switch that in the menu, and so really it just just feels disjointed. Like I'm constantly having to look out for this one specific thing, trying to bait the enemy into a critical attack, and it doesn't feel fluid in the way that I can just quickly deflect and etc. I understand that the LB system of Sekiro allows for a bit of spamming to be done, but then that's why the meter that shows whether they're off balance or not, the stance meter is fantastic. You know what I mean? It really helps even that out. So, what do you think? Do you think I'm correct on my analysis of Wo Long Fallen Dynasty? Do you think that it's the combat system not being fluid enough? Do you think the variation is actually harming the playstyle here? Definitely let me know in the comments down below. Besides that, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. That'll pop up during the outro, and you can follow us on any of our other socials in our description below. Alright guys, I'll see you all in the next gaming session.
Spaced out of my head to the depths of the universe. It's a spell or a chance just to open up a new world.